Alrighty everyone, welcome back. We are not only getting closer to the official release of The Mandalorian Season 3 on March 1st, but we're also getting very close to the Ahsoka Tano series, which, by the way, to fill you guys in, we have, of course, a lot of things coming out on Star Wars Celebration Day, where basically a lot of announcements will be made for the Ahsoka series, including character debuts, plot elements that will be actually announced, and a whole lot more. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now that brings us to exactly where things are heading for the Mandoverse at large. Now, we know that yes, John and Dave are basically taking a lot of Star Wars Legends content from the 90s and the 2000s and throwing that into the up-and-coming Star Wars shows. We know that one in particular, Star Wars TV show called Ghost Track 17, that's actually just the working title, not the official one, is going to basically be an Ezra and Thrawn-focused spin-off that's going to fill in the gaps in between Rebels Season 4 and the Ahsoka Tano series. And so you can see how John and Dave have everything mapped out, where basically, they are choosing where each show takes place wisely. This way, if they want to, they can explore another show in between other shows, if that makes sense. So, beyond all of this, however, John and Dave recently did something very valuable to the Star Wars community, the Star Wars fandom as a whole, and how this actually has a lot to do with Kathleen Kennedy and how they recently actually ended her master plan for Star Wars. Let's tap right into this. Now, with that being said and all, with Favreau and Filoni working around the clock every single day to provide fans an exciting experience for Star Wars, they also have been running into issues with Kathleen Kennedy for the time being, and have been creating a major remedy for the fans. Now, just recently, Favreau and Filoni made a big decision to end one of Kathleen Kennedy's master plans over at Lucasfilm, that was going to create a very large backlash from the fans without a doubt. Now further, it's noted that John and Dave recently cancelled an entire High Republic trilogy from the slate of Star Wars movies that were greenlit by Kathleen Kennedy before she lost her creative power. Now there's a twist to all of this. This was a decision long in the making, as it is involved, of course, how the roadmap was very much expansive and shifts for the franchise to open up new slots for other films, driven by more passionate creators. Now, the other side of the coin here is this, is that the High Republic trilogy was intended by Kathleen Kennedy to release on Disney Plus instead of the theaters, as the first Star Wars movies slated to release on the streaming platform instead of in theaters. Let me stop right here for a second. So, basically, Kathleen Kennedy had this concrete plan of hers before she lost creative power. Back, I would say it was like mid-2020, right around then. She wanted to actually put Star Wars movies on Disney Plus, not in theaters. And it was going to be a High Republic-focused trilogy, and basically, it was going to be more small-scale focused. But what we're about to head into next, I think, is what really could have actually contributed to a very large backlash. Now, as you all know, the High Republic era takes place roughly 200 plus years before the Phantom Menace, and it's basically a time where the Jedi are at the peak of their power. They're at the peak of their control, where they have a lot of peace and justice throughout the galaxy. The thing about this, however, is that Kathleen Kennedy was focusing on completely transforming and breaking the rules of Star Wars, and literally quite saying so. We're going to be tapping into exactly what this really means. So, John and Dave, they realized a big flaw with the High Republic trilogy, and this was going on, basically, guys, for throughout all of 2022, they were trying to get this thing canceled off the roadmap. It was all preliminary stuff about canceling it. Now it's finally done. It's concrete. It's off the roadmap. It's not happening ever, and will never see the light of day. This High Republic trilogy, believe it or not, by Kathleen Kennedy, alright, is that Kathleen Kennedy's attempt was to focus on an entire Star Wars trilogy that would focus away from Star Wars or battles and would strictly focus on peace and justice in the galaxy from the Jedi, where the only drama-driven plot element would be each film focusing on natural disasters that the Jedi would have to face. So let me just pause here for a second. Let that sink in for a moment there. Kathleen Kennedy was about to literally take the meaning of this brand out of the title, taking away Star Wars, taking away any kind of battles, any kind of fights or skirmishes, taking all of that away out of the actual franchise and only focusing on one threat per movie, that of course being a natural disaster. So imagine each film, perhaps the first one having to do with asteroids or floods or something like that. It just sounds ridiculous to me. I don't know about you guys, but this is basically mixing Star Wars with disaster films. And it just does not work. It really doesn't. And we already know that the High Republic technically kind of uses the elements to create some of the characters, like Geo the Rock. You know, that's a character in there. And it uses the elements in there to create a character of its own. So we already know that one of the ideas that Kathleen Kennedy was aiming for was that she wanted Leslie Headland involved in this High Republic trilogy, given that Leslie is already working on The Acolyte, which is a High Republic Star Wars show, by the way, guys. I don't know if you guys knew that. It's at the tail end of that era, but it's still the High Republic. She wanted Headland involved in these 3 movies catered to Disney+, focusing away from the Sith, focusing away from dark side users, period, and not even the Nile were going to appear. They strictly wanted to focus on a peaceful, driven Star Wars trilogy or series of films. I don't think it would have flied at all whatsoever, even for the casual fans that are new to all of this with the High Republic. So, on to the next thing here. This is also described to have been Kennedy's plan, completely changing the nature of the franchise, and Star Wars would only go against this title itself of the brand. And that's true because, let's face it, it's in the title. You got Star Wars. You need wars among the stars, right? You have to have that. You have to have space battles. You have to have, ground warfare, whatever, battles on the surface of each world, stuff like that. You need something like that. It needs fights, battles, skirmishes, and wars. That's what this franchise is about when it comes to the drama, right? So, I can understand if they maybe wanted to focus on natural disasters as like a little tiny side plot for like maybe like a fraction of the movie, but not an entire trilogy. I mean, that's just ridiculous. So anyways, guys, drop a comment below, fill me in on what you guys have to say about all this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to moon we hear them moans again.